If you've been to a Miami Heat game over the last 3 decades, you're probably familiar with that voice. Michael Biamonte is the public address announcer for the Heat and a proud FIU alum. We talked about his time with the FIU basketball team, stories from his years with the Heat, and I really enjoyed the details of his approach and mindset, whether it was when he started to formulate this idea at a young age of doing this as a career, to enjoying the ride as Miami is in yet another NBA Finals. This was a fun conversation. I'm AJ Ricketts. Hope you enjoy episode 13 of the FIU Athletics podcast.
All right, Michael Biamonte, FIU alum, class of what, 2012, 13? You look like you just graduated.
Yeah, AJ, you're too kind. It was long ago.
Long ago. No, not too long. And of course, public address announcer for the Miami Heat. Thanks for taking some time this week, man. It's a busy time of year. I don't know if you expected to still be this busy into June.
Yeah, you know, when
we were losing in the play-in game.
Right. When you're down with 3 minutes left in the second play-in game, your thoughts of, am I going to be working in June, are nowhere. Don't enter the picture anywhere.
You're like Chuck and Shaq thinking, Cancun on 3, like Nassau on 3.
And then things happen. And listen, it's going to be a short off season for me because we're going to finish with the NBA season, and FIU football is going to be starting up right away a couple of months later.
It's coming soon.
Yeah.
I was at that first play-in game, actually. I went with the buddy. He was like, I got some seats in the nosebleeds. Let's hop to that game. And from the first quarter, we were very disgruntled. Couldn't imagine 2 months later to be in the NBA Finals.
No, I don't think anybody could. And I don't think anyone could who objectively followed this team for the entire season.
Right.
It certainly wasn't the team we're seeing now. But those guys in that locker room knew what they could do.
Keep referencing, and there were plenty of injuries over the course of the year.
There were. We had the second most
kind of year.
Players minutes missed because of injury. And I never felt like we got on any kind of momentous roll where we got 6 in a row or 8 in a row. It's okay, now we're kind of getting it figured out. But they certainly have it figured out right now.
Excited to talk about your time at FIU, how this all got started, and of course Miami Heat memories and reflecting on so many amazing runs that this organization's been able to have. But want to keep it just where we are at this point in time a little bit. I mean, this is the first finals in a couple of years. I mean, we were on a roll for a while. Every year it felt you were public address for the NBA Finals. Of course, we made it the COVID year, but you weren't at the bubble, right?
I was not in person at the bubble. My voice was there, but I was not there.
So it's got to feel good to be back. What was the last year again? I'm forgetting off the top of my head.
It was 2013-14.
14, okay.
So it was 9 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to being live in the building for a finals game.
Is there still performance anxiety for you at this juncture when it gets to this level, or is it old hat to have the ABC cameras on your face as you start the starting lineup introductions?
There's still some anxious moments there, you know, because having millions of people watching you with the camera right in my face, that's not a common occurrence. You know, that's not happening every night at a Heat game, and that doesn't happen anymore in the playoffs. It happens in the finals, and so things around me will be a lot different, and that will get my attention. I certainly don't expect it to change my ability to do my job, but I'll be aware of it. I'll be aware. There might be a little extra flutter in the stomach tomorrow night, but I think that's probably normal.
It's I'm really excited to chat with you. I remember, subconsciously hear your voice watching Heat games in the finals when I was in high school, and first Heat game I went to with a buddy was sophomore year of college, and we were on the Metro rail waiting for the Metro mover, and he's just standing on the platform looking at what was the AAA at the time, and he's like, he's just mimicking your intros. He's like, and now, stand. I'm like, buddy, what are you doing? He's like, that's Mike B. You're gonna see him. So to get to know you over the years and your work here at FIU, it's pretty cool because you're synonymous with Miami Heat basketball. Does that ever get old? Like people will just, they might not know who you are. Half may not, but they know Dos Minutos. They know the intros. How neat is that?
It's really cool, AJ, I have to tell you. It is something that I never really expected it, but with the longevity, this being my 32nd year as the PA voice of the Heat, all of the things that I brought, the catchphrases, the too many steps, the stand up and make some noise for your Miami Heat, the dos minutos, that's all been consistent over and over and over. And the town, the city of South Florida, they've really embraced it, and they really get a kick out of it and enjoy it, and I do too. I always tell my friends, don't you get sick of people asking you to do dos minutos or do stand up and make some noise? I said, no. It's when they stop asking you to do it. That's when you got to worry.
Yeah, you want them to always care and have that passion for it. Because you talk about PA announcers across the league, and all have their own unique things, but I feel like some of your phrases, what you've made iconic at Heat games, like it's unique in terms of, I think of the NBA, maybe the Detroit PA announcer when he does his Detroit basketball.
Yep.
That's the only other thing I could think of, having watched years of the league. So there's certainly a familiarity with that. I want to get more into the phrases, the origins of that throughout this conversation, but let's rewind a little bit. It's not that long ago when you were in undergrad, all right? It's just a couple of years ago, but we were talking a little bit. You were involved with the early days of FIU basketball. I think the program's first years in the early 80s, 81, 82, at the top of my head, if I remember correctly.
Yep,
but,
you're right.
Was speaking at the game, being on the mic, public address, was that always something? Were you in your living room as a kid pretending you were doing starting lineups? Where was the origin of that passion for
So
it?
growing up, I probably got hooked into it, I would say, in my middle school years, somewhere around 8th grade. I knew that my voice could carry better than anybody else's. I just kind of learned that. And at the time, there was no basketball in South Florida.
Right.
And you would get maybe 1 or 2 games a week on one of the stations. CBS would carry a NBA game of the week. And so I liked basketball, I'd watch basketball. And for whatever reason, probably because they were a really good team, we would always get the broadcasts from the Philadelphia games. Mm-hmm. And so I'm watching the Philadelphia 76ers at home on television, and I hear this big booming voice in the background. Not the play-by-play guy, not the color guy, but this big booming voice in the background. And I realized that the crowd is kind of responding to what this guy's doing.
Right.
And so I kept watching and listening, and I said, boy, that sounds pretty cool. I wonder what that's all about. And then I would later learn that he was what they call the public address announcer. His name is Dave Zinkoff. And so I would listen to Dave on my television as a young kid and kind of learn what you say. I learned kind of my style came a little bit from his. And so when I got into high school, I finally got a chance to announce our team, our boys' team, and had a great time with it. And graduated there, came to FIU. The very first year they had a men's basketball team, and they needed to staff up everything.
Right.
And one of the things they needed was a public address announcer. And so on my application for FIU, I was very proud of the fact that we were the only school of our size in Dade County that had an announcer for their boys basketball program. So one of the questions they asked on the application, what were you most proud of in high school?
Yeah.
And so I said that I started this program and I put this program together. Well, somehow that application got to the sports information director at FIU, who gave me a call and said, would you like to audition for the job as the men's basketball PA announcer? I said, I'd love to. This is back in 1981.
Right.
Our arena doesn't exist.
It's a different landscape on campus.
There were 5 buildings on campus when I was in school.
Still see
here.
Vestiges of the airport.
Yes, we parked on one of the airstrips. That was the parking lot.
Yeah.
So we had to find different places to play. One of them was a local high school in Sweetwater. Mm-hmm. And so I remember that's where I went and auditioned, did the game, and the SID, a gentleman by the name of Rich Kelch. Rich came up to me after and said, we'd love to have you announce our games. So that's how I got started with FIU basketball. And for maybe those first 2 years, we were gypsies, man. We played anywhere that we could find a gym until the arena was open.
Yeah.
And so that sent us to high schools in Miami Beach, sent us to Miami-Dade College, and sent us to the strangest venue I've ever announced a basketball game in, the James L. Knight Center.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, if you don't know the James L. Knight Center, think about going to a play venue or a concert venue. Seats all on one side.
One side, right.
And then a
stage
a
of sorts.
performance
Yeah.
area to which there was a basketball court put down. Fans, no visiting fans and home fans, everybody's on the same side.
Right.
You're actually in a hotel. And so it was the strangest venue that I've ever done basketball in. It led in my career to an even more unusual time. The gentleman who was running the James L. Knight Center, who I got to know from doing games there, called me up one day and said, "Hey, I got a gig that I think you might be good for." He said, "I've got an organization looking for a ring announcer." And I said, "Well, I mean, I've never done boxing before.
You'd only done basketball, essentially.
At this point, I did a little bit of high school football when I was in high school, but just basketball is my thing." I said, "I've never done boxing." He said, "Oh, no, it's not boxing. It's professional wrestling." And so for 2 years, I worked for Vince McMahon as a ring announcer for what was then the World Wrestling Federation, and announced all the stars you could think of in the mid-'80s, including guys like Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. And so that was one of the more unusual things. But I have to thank the fact that I was the voice of FIU men's basketball, and we were traveling around everywhere, and people got to hear you.
Yeah.
And so it was a great story, and FIU is always going to be special to me because that's really where things started to lift off.
So you were listening to PA announcers with a critical ear from a young age.
Yes.
So if you had tape, maybe you do, of your college PA days, how much have you changed since? Would you give it a good critique at this point? Because I think of my college broadcasting, and I won't show anybody that it's a private video on YouTube. Maybe the students in my class, it's their like reward at the end of the semester. Hey, here's how I was in college, and you're so much better than that. So I listen with a very critical ear.
It's funny because a lot of the things that I did here, I took with me to the NBA. And so I've always had the elongated name style for the home guys and the muted style for when the visitors score, and some like the Too Many Steps that started here, and that went with me to the NBA. When they had 3-pointers, 3 went with me over there. 3. So I brought a lot of what I was doing here with me to the NBA, and it works.
It's subtle, but I think now thinking more on it, that's one of my favorite aspects of you calling a game is how muted it is when an opponent scores. You've gone from the big LeBron, intro to LeBron James. Yeah. It's actually really funny. I'll just chuckle when I see you. Sometimes you go really short on the names and really low, as if they don't deserve to have it said. It's funny. So you start with FIU. You're traveling around.
Yeah.
It's a young program, but those are the opportunities when you're a college student. You don't care where you go. You don't care what the setup is. You're having so much fun in that moment. What do you remember about PAing for FIU in those days? The players, the staff, the coaches, or just how bare bones the setup may have been? What stands out when you reflect on those days?
Yeah, I think we were so young, and all the players, a lot of them, were my age. Freshmen too.
Right.
And it was all so new and young that we were just going to school and playing basketball. We had classes together, friends. Certainly not what NCAA basketball has become in those, what's been now 40 plus years. But it really was, our friends would come to the games, and our classmates would come out, and we hung out together. It's a little different world today, not necessarily in a negative way, but just a little different. That we were more just like school kids that, hey, you play on the basketball team, and he's the announcer, and so it was a fun, I would say, definitely a fun experience.
Yeah. Now, college ends, and there's only a couple of years later, the Heat get going. I was listening to a podcast you're in from last summer, so you got an opportunity to fill in That was like your audition because you had sent in an application. You weren't the guy. You got a chance to fill in. Tell me about that experience. Did you think you did a good job that day? Just the experience of the fill-in, then you started to get more opportunities after that. The first PA guy, I think you were saying, was also on staff in the communications departments because everybody was balancing different roles. So just tell me about the origins of getting involved with the Heat and then maybe the nerves you had when you finally got an opportunity.
So I'm still, I graduate. I'm working. I'm in the workforce, and I'm announcing FIU games at night. And I apply to the Heat, and thank you. We have somebody. Don't call us. We'll call you. Yeah. And there's so many times in life that you just need fortune. And one of the good fortune things that happened to me was a friend of mine that I went to school with here, who everybody now knows in town. His name is Jose Pañeda. He's the Spanish radio voice of the Miami Heat. He originally took a job as a ticket salesman for the Miami Heat. And he was great. He was always keeping my name in the right people's ear. Hey, I got a guy. If you need a guy, I got a guy. And one day they needed a guy. And so I'm at my 9-to-5 job, sitting at my desk, the phone rings. Guy on the other end says, "This is the Miami Heat. Our announcer is sick, and we're wondering if you can announce the game." So the first thing that comes across my mind is, which of my jerk buddies is on the other end here trying to trying to play me a little bit? Turned out to be legit. I went down. The Heat played a team that doesn't even exist anymore. That's how long ago this was. They played the Seattle Supersonics, who have since gone on to become the Oklahoma City Thunder. I see Jose. He says, "Listen, you're going to be great. I've heard you a lot." He said, "You're going to be fine." So I go out. Am I nervous? I'm absolutely nervous. I wouldn't say I'm scared to death, but I'm nervous.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of games. Basketball, I try to tell young upcoming PA guys, basketball is basketball. And sometimes you got to be careful and don't let the lights stare you in the eye too much and get you all worked up.
Yeah.
So I didn't do anything too over the top. Got through the game. Everything was fine. Got a call the next day and was asked if I would be interested in being the permanent backup for the team. Mm-hmm. And so I said, absolutely, sure. Still doing FIU games. And they brought me in to do a preseason game at one point as the backup. And then the guy who had the job had to leave the organization to go take over a family business on the West Coast. And I got a chance to re-audition and brought me on 32 seasons ago.
It probably doesn't feel like it's been 30-something years.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
It absolutely doesn't. I mean, when I look at that number, you say to yourself, "Oh my gosh, that's unbelievable." It really is. It's been an incredible career.
Tell me about the relationships you've been able to build in this role. I'm sure one of the biggest perks is just, you give those guys introductions, but you see them essentially every other day. Whether it's the player or Pat Riley or Spo, just can you talk about some of those relationships you've been able to build through the years and what has become one of the most respected organizations in professional sports?
Yeah, it's really been, for me, outstanding to work for the organization. It certainly has changed a lot from my early days. But when you think about when Pat Riley first came, I had been in the chair for about 3 seasons maybe.
Yeah.
And things you could tell, things are going to be different now. And
in what ways?
So Pat wanted to run a pretty tight ship.
Yeah.
Where basketball is one side, business is another side, and they both have importance, but basketball is the focus here.
Right.
So, not having worked for any other professional organization in the NBA, I don't know if this is the norm or not, but our access and interaction with the players is very limited.
Right.
There's no hanging out. There's no, hey, trading cell phone. There's nothing. Those guys are the ones that are the most important.
Yeah.
And so I also learned that there were things that Pat wanted and didn't want from me. sitting behind the mic. I never forget the first game that he was our head coach. I did the big introductions for all of our guys, and man, I gave him and the head coach of your Miami Heat is Pat Riley. And
he didn't like that.
I got a message that, and Pat's been like this from day one. He said, the league is about the players. It's not about the coaches. So let's bring that down a little bit and stay with the emphasis on the players.
Yeah.
And great, got it, easy. And as we were getting to know each other, more messages would come, other messages would come. And the one thing I will say about Pat is he is as consistent today in what it is he wants than he was when he came here in day one. And whether that's too stringent for you, whether it's just right for you, you can't really ask for more than that. If you know what the man wants and you can give him what he wants, that you couldn't be happier with an environment working like that.
I was reading about the origins of Dos Minutos, coming from a production meeting.
Yep.
You guys wanted to figure out a way to give a nod to the Hispanic community here without confusing the non-Hispanic communities. Dos Minutos, or 2 minutes, became the thing towards the end. I was reading an article in The Athletic about that and the catchphrases that play-by-plays or PA announcers may have, and it was referencing that story. And it said there was a little apprehension because 10 years earlier, you had started the stand up and make some noise to barely any participation. And then I was like, wait, really? I don't. Do you remember when that started?
Oh, sure.
And I can't, to me, I don't know, an NBA game and there's pyrotechnics going on, the PA guy's getting hype. I think people get hype, but apparently that wasn't the case. Tell me about that and where the tension came in.
So
because it sounded awkward reading that article.
It's a hysterical story now.
Yeah.
Because spoiler alert, it worked out.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I'm at a game working with my director at the time, who's going on now to become one of the VPs in the company, and he said, I just got back from a 4-city tour. They went and toured 4 NBA teams. He said, I don't remember which city it was, but there was a call to action right before they introduced the starting lineup.
Right.
He said, do you think you could come up with something like that and make it a call to action? I said, well, give me a few days to think about it.
Yeah, let me mull this over.
And so I thought about it. What would I say? What would make sense? And I came up with stand up and make some noise. And so once I was comfortable with what it was going to be and how I thought it was going to sound, I told him, I said, okay, I've got it. And if it's all right with you, I'm going to use it tonight.
Right.
He said, great. So here we go. Get ready to start the introduction. And now, stand up and make some noise for your Miami Heat. Nobody stands up. Nobody makes any more noise than they would have made.
Oh, no.
And I'm defeated. Now, I've got to go in and finish my starting lineups, which I do, right? But I'm defeated saying, oh, I thought about this. God. And I turned to him and he said, I like it. It's going to work. We're just going to keep at it. And we did. And I'm still doing it to this day.
Were there flames going off?
No.
Yeah, because I imagine that helps the mood there.
Sure.
You can feel the fire.
This Stand Up and Make Some Noise goes back to the old Miami Arena.
Right.
Which was before the building that we're in now. And there was no pyro. There was no production. That building was built in the mid-'80s. So what you see in the Kaseya Center
today
today
set up for success
is a lot different than what we had to use back in the day.
I'm just imagining that intro. No one's on their feet. Just
nobody's doing it. Just people just said, okay, well, now what do we do? And,
I'd say it worked out in the end.
And you know what? We stayed with it.
Yeah.
And that's another thing you really have to appreciate is the folks in production and in marketing. They're not expecting something necessarily to hit 100 day one.
Right.
But they can tell if they think this thing's got legs to it, and they support you, and they come up with ideas. Dos Minutos is perfect story to tell when you talk about
Right.
How do we take that idea and how do we make it, advance it to make it
you
even
had people
better?
from the staff going into the stands,
Right.
explaining things. It was a concerted effort, got it started, and now it's become tradition. I want to ask about another story.
Okay.
And it's been 11 years now, I think. So feel free to plead the fifth, though, if you don't want to talk about it. I was prepping for this, and I came across this article from 2012, and it was when I think we played the Knicks
Correct.
in the first round. You may know where this is
I
going.
know exactly where you're going.
In the first round, and it's fun. Amari Stoudemire,
Yep.
I think he has an FIU connection. I think he might have taken a class in the last few years at FIU. I think we did a feature with him a few years ago, so it's funny. That's full circle. But Amari Stoudemire was on the Knicks, fouled out of the game. Shane Battier took a charge. Love Shane Battier, by the way, one of my favorites. Amari went over to help him up and then pulled his hand away at the last second. But he's walking back to the bench. The crowd's getting on him. That was the series where he had hurt his hand earlier by punching the fire extinguisher.
Right.
And so you said, as he's walking to the bench, Amari Stoudemire, instead of has been disqualified, has been fouled out, has been extinguished from this game. I think that took you to another level in Heat lore. The organization did issue an apology the next day. I think 11 years is enough. I don't think it's a fun story to me to read. But was there any blowback internally to that, or what do you remember? Because I think Heat fans loved it.
So it just came to me. It just, it's like
It's hysterical.
It really just came to me, and I said it. And the minute it came out of my mouth, it's kind of one of those things that you wish you could have reeled it back in. But listen, it was out. It was done.
Yeah.
I was approached by our general manager, post game, Andy Ellisberg, and he asked to see me in his office, and he was not happy.
Probably not
at all. Again, they want things done a certain way, and I kind of veered off of that, and so I had a conversation with him, apologized, explained that I totally
That was
understand.
handled well in the aftermath.
And
you put in 22 years of equity at this point,
So next day, or later that night, I get a call from my game ops director saying, the boss wants to meet with you in the morning.
Yeah.
So I went in. He wanted an explanation, so I explained everything to him. And I would say in the 11 years, it's softened a lot.
Yeah.
I'll have people come up to me and just privately, you would not expect to say things and say, hey, listen, we got to extinguish this team tonight or whatever it is. So what really concerned me was when it made the front page of ESPN.com.
Oh, did it? Yeah.
Because I'm saying to myself,
you feel you've made it more about you than the team's win. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And it's not positive.
Right.
When the team's coming out and having to apologize for something that I said, when all I tell these young upcoming PA guys is you have to be trustworthy with an open microphone.
Yeah.
That's it. When you control the on-off button of that microphone, that organization has to know they can trust you. And at that moment, they may have lost a little bit of that. And that hurt me and it bothered me. And I will tell you, like anybody else, I was worried if I was going to have a job.
Yeah.
Because we see it all the time. Announcers who talk a lot. You're a broadcaster, you know.
If I want to say anything sensitive, I just take it off. I don't trust the mute button.
The one wrong word that comes out of your mouth, then that costs you a career.
Yeah.
So while it wasn't anything offensive, and I was trying to be funny, and some responses have been, yeah, it was funny. The ones that were the most important didn't want it. And so listen, lesson learned, and we're in good shape.
And I think with time, it's become a good story. Yeah, with time.
And to hear your reaction to it is nice as well. To know that it wasn't malicious or anything.
No.
It was just but that was the one time that I started to sweat a little bit.
I feel you should have, in a decades-long career, if that's your slip-up, I think that's just fine. Moving forward. And I'm sure with time, Amari would probably be like, yeah, that was a good one. We'll ask him next time he's on campus. Because we did interview him a few years ago. We probably should have asked him about that and said, oh, he's our guy here too. That's funny. You get a kick out of that. So now another NBA Finals. It's been an incredible run this year. What's been the most fun aspects of this year for you? And maybe just the last month in itself, but what makes this year different than the last couple finals runs we've had, if there is anything, or does it just kind of feel like, it's a comfortable blanket?
Totally different.
Yeah.
Going back, and yes, we made it the year we were in the bubble, but we're going to put that on the side for a minute. Those 4 consecutive years that we went to the finals, the expectation from preseason game 1 was your team better get to the finals. That's a little different thought process. And people ask me a lot about what those 4 years were like. Oh my God, that must have been amazing. You went to the finals 4 years in a row. You had 3 great players. And it was.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was awful because we were under a microscope every night of every game of every one of those seasons.
Yeah.
Anything that happened became bigger than life. So you really had to be on top of your game. Then you've got the expectations of you've got to get to the finals. Then you've got the expectations that you got to win the finals. So that's a totally different spot than where we would put this team now. Sure, we had some expectation getting to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, falling just short. But never during the season did you feel like you could say, okay, here we go, we're going to make that run back.
Yeah.
So to directly answer your question, I would say it's been these last 6 weeks, 8 weeks has probably been the most enjoyable it's been.
It's been interesting to see that aspect on social media. There's a lot of people who will say, as amazing as it was to have the best players in the world for those 4 straight titles runs altogether, there's a different kind of gratification coming out of this finals run. And maybe it's with that element, just the complete unexpected nature of it.
Sure.
Being an 8 seed, taking down the 1, it definitely is a different feel, and it's not so much a knock on the other teams, but this is a run that he have never had.
No, we've never seen anything like this, AJ. And you look at the players we're doing it with, these guys that have been homegrown for the Heat, whether it be the G League or signing 2-way contracts. And they're being so instrumental in winning the biggest games on the biggest stage.
It's something that a lot of just people as human beings can identify with, right? Being overlooked, having something go against your way professionally. And these guys kind of embody the ideal way to move forward from that, whether it's Strus after being waived by the Celtics, Caleb Martin not being drafted, all these, and there's so many examples. I think the city really identifies with that. A lot of people, and that's part of what makes this run really special, just the guys that are doing it, as you said, and then, having a bulldog like Jimmy Butler lead the way and seeing him score 40, 50 plus in games too. That's a lot of fun.
That's
fun. A lot of fun too. I really admire how you kind of approach things now, 3+ decades as a professional with the Heat, but you still come back here to do FIU football games in the fall. You want to be connected to your alma mater. There's certain Heat games each year now, it seems. You'll have a guy that does a lot of our games, Luis Perez. You'll give him an opportunity with the Miami Heat. I know how meaningful that is to him. How important is that to you? One, to kind of guide or mentor who may be next, to be connected to a place that got you your start. It seems like you keep these things in mind as you move forward.
Yeah, that's very important to me, AJ, is knowing how did I get to where I am now? Because I'm in a very lucky spot.
Yeah.
And it's thanks to a lot of people in my past. And FIU is one of those organizations that really was the launch of my career. And so to be able to come back and announce for my alma mater, that's awesome.
Yeah.
While basketball is not real feasible because of the overlap of the schedule, being able to do the football games has been so much fun. And it's a way that I like to let the university know, hey, I'll always appreciate the opportunity you gave me. The mentoring is something that I think I have to do. I have a passion for what it is I do as a public address announcer. I've made a connection with the South Florida Miami Heat fans that I think is second to none. They have accepted me. We have a great time. They get me fired up. I get them fired up. And they play along with all of our stand up and make some noise in Dos Minutos. And now we've got another one out where I say, me, and then the whole arena says Butler. And so that's been fantastic. And I think that relationship is important. And so that's why when it comes to working with younger guys or working with my backup, Lewis, making sure they understand that if you want to take this role, there's some things you're going to have to do other than just show up at night, turn the mic on, announce the game, and go home. At least I think that.
I remember I've done, I don't know how I fell into these roles. I've done PA like 2 or 3 times. And again, it was a fill-in, and I was probably the last guy on the list. But they're like, hey, let's call AJ. And I was more nervous than 99% of the play-by-play games I had done, because if I butcher something on a play-by-play, it's whatever. I'll just re-say it, or it's a 3-hour broadcast. It's fine. If you pause too long before you say somebody's a sophomore, like at guard, a sophomore number, like everyone notices. All it takes is a second of misreading to make the starting lineups awkward. It is such a performance, and a lot of times, like the pyrotechnics, like we said, those are going off. It's dark, music's going crazy. You have to be locked in. I don't think people realize, especially for the starting introductions, but then over the course of the game, trying to keep a flow to it going. It's an art. It is a performance. You are not just reading off a script the whole time. That's the thing that stood out to me.
I appreciate you recognizing that, AJ, because all of my career, I have been a public address announcer.
Right.
People always ask me, when are you going to get into play-by-play? Why don't you get into radio? Why don't you? Because my skill set is being a public address announcer. Now, the average people out there wouldn't even know what that meant.
Right.
But what I do, that skill set, I'm built for that. I like to say I know where my lane is. For me, to try to take on your role would leave me just as whatever you want to say about, I don't know, what? I got to continually talk? I mean, and so it is different, but yet people just watching what you and I do, together would say, oh, they could do each other's job easy. But they're totally different.
I would agree.
Totally different skill sets.
Yeah, that's why I was surprised internally. I was like, I can't do PA. Whereas externally, people may think it's interchangeable. I think it's a lot more difficult than that. I just remember that. I think when I did a 3 call, I was like, I'm going to sound so dumb. 3, I can't do that. Like I can announce it on a play-by-play broadcast.
Right.
I feel very comfortable, but trying to drag it, and I'm thinking inflection, tone, how high, how low am I, how long do. This is a mess. Or if I forget one name on the starter. I think I did a volleyball match against UCF once, and either said the wrong name or something. The coach is walking over the table like, you didn't get this right. Is our starters correct? It was like, no, the PA guy just misread it. You're fine. Like, your starters are set, man. So I had my mistakes in the first one, but it gave me a great appreciation for it, even more than already had listening to you through the years. When you walk around this campus, just how different does it feel? Does it feel like it was just the other day? I mean, I feel this place has grown so much even in the last 5 to 10 years. What emotions come back as you walk? Do you really just get a chance to come here to the football facility and you head back, or do you have a chance every now just to walk around, kind of reflect on what it was in your time here?
I have been invited back. I graduated from the business school, and so the business school's had me back, and we've done some things together. I'm so proud of what FIU has become. As I said, when I came here in 1981, there were 5 buildings. 5 buildings on campus. There's more parking garages now on campus than there were buildings. And to see what President Medic, followed by President Rosenberg, were able to do with this university and the growth of it, it just fills me with a great sense of pride. Most of the time I'm coming back, it's to come here to do the football games or to do a special event for one of the schools or something or other. But I can't get over it. The number of alums that this school has, in South Florida and around the country and around the world, it's phenomenal. And certainly not anything I thought I'd see here as a member of the first freshman class that they ever admitted to FIU.
Yeah.
It has been amazing.
It's a special place, and it's just they're still building. they're still the street corner over there. Something's being built. I don't even know which one, but they're still building, and it's exciting to see. I know it's cool for me when I'm doing the whether the ESPN Plus broadcast or radio. I love when you get to the third or fourth quarter and you do the PA read for the post-game show, and you're like, make sure to listen to the FIU post-game show with AJ Ricketts. I'm like, that's the guy I'd hear on every Heat game in high school. And it's fun. I used to not care for the Heat. I was a big Orlando Magic guy growing up, so I have an identity crisis, right? I don't know if I should be allowed to, but I've adopted the Heat. How can you not when you live in the city? But it's cool to see that. So I know FIU is really proud of the journey you've had, and you get to be a voice of the city for the Miami Heat, and hopefully we can get another one of these rings, man. I know we got Wednesday night is our next game, and it was Sunday after that, Wednesday and Sunday.
Actually, Game 4 will be Friday.
Okay.
Wednesday and Friday, and then we head back out to Denver.
We got a shot. We got a shot, man.
We do have a chance, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't think there's any reason to put any doubt in this team after what we've seen. There is no reason to doubt them, and you should have full faith that they're going to give it everything they've got.
Whatever happens, it's been a run to remember, but let's see if we can finish this thing off. Yeah,
I'm with you on that.
I want to bang some pots and pans on Biscayne Boulevard. I never had the chance to do that. I was always out of town when I was in college. So I want to be on Biscayne. I was out of the watch party there. You're hosting some watch parties, aren't you?
Yeah.
Where are yours at?
For the finals, we're inside the Kaseya Center.
Okay.
We had 10,000 people.
That's right. I saw Jeremy Taché going nuts the other day.
Yes. Yes. That was after we won.
Awesome. Yeah.
And
it's like they're hoisting babies in the air.
It's an interesting phenomenon what happens there.
Yeah.
You fill the building with people who are huge Heat fans.
Yeah.
But maybe don't get a chance to go to very many games.
Right.
Or if they go, they're generally sitting in the 300 level. So now you've got 10,000 loud, rabid Heat fans that are all in the lower bowl. The sheer volume in that place is unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I would expect, regardless of whether you sit upstairs or downstairs, tomorrow night it's going to be the same.
Oh, it's going to be insane. Yeah, I'm going to try to make that next watch party for our next road gigs. I didn't realize it was happening. I should have realized there was something going on there. But yeah, I was watching on Miracle Mile, I think Game 7 against the Celtics, and yeah, at the end of that game, at John Martin's, the owner just comes behind the bar with his pot and pan and starts went electric. I was like, the pots and pans, let's go! It's just so synonymous. So that was fun, and hopefully we can do that on Biscayne in addition to Miracle Mile moving forward. Always appreciate chopping up with you, Mike. Thanks for the time.
You bet.
This has been great. Let's go Panthers.
Go Panthers.
And let's go Heat.
Great.